When we last left off, Shockwave had converted the Dinobots into Kaiju instead of dinosaurs after his, schematic simply shifted to another dimension. And so the Dinobots made their way to Earth via the events of Rising Darkness or Darkness Rising, where they actually leapt through the space bridge while killing a lot of the Terracons and managed to beat the mess out of Megatron. And Megatron ultimately retreated, not only survived as well here, but, retreated, got repaired by Knockout, who had to arrive a bit earlier in the timeline, and he threw to Skyquake. However, it's not enough, as during the events of, Sick Mind, there is a new episode taking place, this one being Clash of Titans. Megatron sent out a distress signal, one to a very powerful Decepticon. This Decepticon arrives on Earth, crash landing into a aircraft carrier over the Pacific Ocean, and takes it as a vehicle form. And this is where our story begins. Agent Fowler informs the Autobots of what happened, and that whatever was able to destroy the aircraft carrier in one shot was extremely powerful, to which they think it's the Decepticons, but not in the way that they think. They think that they're just using a weapon, but little do they know that they actually sent out a super weapon instead, a living one. And this is where Grimlock and the Monster Bots demand that they go out and confront whatever's going on. To which this is where Agent Fowler says that he did evacuate the area that this so-called weapon is heading. And it definitely seems like it's got the life signature of the Decepticons. So, believe it or not, they do ultimately let the Monster Bots go. And this is because Optimus does not want any type of friction with the Monster Bots at this point. They're an ace in the hole, and Optimus wants to do his best to keep them on his side, at least long enough for them to end this war. So the Monster Bots pretty much exit the ground bridge on a abandoned beach. There's no people and no sign of them to really be caught. It seems like this beach is on the outskirts of a desert, which isn't bad for them. So, believe it or not, they're waiting to be greeted by their threat. However, all they see is a Decepticon-looking warship just coming at them, or carrier ship just coming at them. And so, this is where the Monster Bots kind of just look at it as, oh, it's probably just some type of Decepticon cruiser. We used to have those back in the war. However, when the cruiser begins to transform, they realize exactly just what they're getting into. This isn't no Decepticon cruiser. This is the Decepticon super weapon, Tidal Wave. Oh yeah, we're bringing back glory days over here. Y'all remember that Transformers Armada days? Yeah, we're bringing back those days here. So, believe it or not, Tidal Wave is the Decepticon super weapon, and he is massive, around the same size as a Combiner, probably a little bit bigger than the likes of Devastator and Bruticus, but again, still a Combiner-sized threat nevertheless. And so the Monster Bots engage him in their beast forms respectively, not holding anything back. They're not leaving nothing to chance. They want to tear this guy apart. But Tidal Wave does have the weaponry to keep the Monster Bots at bay. Multiple types of cannons, dark matter, or what is it called, those black hole type bombs or whatever. He's able to use all these weapons to keep the Dinobots at bay. However, eventually they do get close, and this is thanks to Swoop. Utilizing his wind manipulation, he's able to create a clear opening for the Monster Bots to attack, with Baragon, or Slug here, burning him with his flames, Sludge rolling at the kneecaps, or at least the back of his kneecaps, to actually cause him to buckle, and allowing Snarl in his beast form of King Caesar to land a devastating slam or axe kick right to his chest, and this allows Grimlock to follow up with a kangaroo kick pounce, or a kangaroo pounce, onto Tidal Wave's face, and uses this opportunity to tear at him. Tidal Wave is now on the back foot. However, he's still able to put up a ridiculously good fight, to where his blows begin to cause a little bit of some shockwaves. And these shockwaves begin to make, a tidal wave itself. But again, let's just be real, he does cause a tsunami with the blows that he's able to land on the monster bots, and this does, you know, sweep them away a little bit. But again, once they regain themselves and see how tidal wave actually begins to play out, this is where Slug, the team's tactician, actually begins to formulate a very, very great plan. And so the monster bots execute it effortlessly. And this plan is able to knock back and even able to subdue the likes of Tidal Wave. However, just before they can even get the killing blow, the Decepticon warship comes into view and begins bombarding the monster bots. And unfortunately, this allows Tidal Wave this allows Tidal Wave to escape, simply transforming into his carrier mode and just swimming off into the sea. Meanwhile, the Decepticon warship also pulls out of view as well, with the monster bots obviously mad that they couldn't even get the, you know, results that they wanted. With the Decepticon warship there, they felt like they could have ended the war right then and there, but unfortunately for them, they couldn't. But right now, they do head back to base and do inform Optimus that, well, the Decepticons have just bought out one of their heavy hitters, that being Tidal Wave. And this has every Autobot, including Optimus, shook. Tidal Wave hasn't been seen since the older days of the war, when Megatron used him to take out an entire planet system and conquer it. He's no joke, and the fact that he's here is absolutely excruciating. But again, Optimus also knows the fact that they were able to take him, and take him easily. And Optimus does feel a little bit confident. Not too confident or overconfident, but he does feel confident here. Now, the next episode originally would have been Out of His Head. However, I'm going to play this one a bit differently. This one is called The Return. With Megatron now understanding that Tidal Wave is one of his best threats, he does assign Knockout to be his personal doctor. Meaning that, well, Knockout does have to get to work repairing Tidal Wave consistently if he ever gets harmed by the monster bots again. So this kind of gives Knockout a lot more importance to Decepticon cause, as he's one of the few people that actually are able to fix up Tidal Wave. However, Megatron thinks this isn't enough. This isn't what he ultimately needed. But he knows there is an edge somehow, and he needs this edge. To which, this is where he begins thinking. And then he looks at Starscream, who's a bit, I guess you could say, panicky at Megatron's look. And this is where he asks him, what happened to Shockwave? What? Oh, Megatron, he died. Did he? Or did you abandon him? Well, to be fair, Lord Megatron, he did rush into a ground bridge, and, well, it was in the process of exploding. What was I supposed to do? Rush in there myself and save him? To which Megatron simply rolls his eyes and is just like, you know what? That is a good point. I won't slap you. At least not today. So, believe it or not, this is where Megatron really isn't convinced that Shockwave is dead, and ultimately goes to find him himself. And do I think he succeeds? Yes, he does. I do think he would be able to retrace some of Shockwave's old laboratories and stuff like that. And, well, bada bing, bada boom. Yeah, he finds Shockwave in his laboratory experimenting. And to Megatron's happiness, a Predacon. Something that he definitely needs. And he simply asks Shockwave, how long has he been working on this? Shockwave simply states, oh, well, Lord Megatron, I've been working on this one for a while. Study from the remains of the fossils of our planet, the Predacon here is a superb hunter. One that I've made sure could likely rival the monster bots, if it came down to it. To which Megatron is quite pleased to hear this, and ultimately wants Shockwave to come back with him. and bring the Predacon. And so, Shockwave returns, as he should. And again, this earlier interaction or earlier addition to Shockwave has so many benefits. Shockwave is a powerhouse in his own right. But the fact that he's also a scientific member and he can handle himself on the field, dude's basically the best double-edged sword that doesn't stab you. Unless you, well, piss him off, which poor Starscream is obviously capable of doing. But you know, it is what it is. To which when Shockwave does get back, thanks for reminding me, he does promptly scare the living crap out of Starscream. So that does happen. But believe it or not, I do think that the episode Shadow Zone takes place a little bit differently. Instead of him discovering, you know, Dark Energon and stuff like that, or Starscream going out and discover that, Starscream actually gets a contact from one of the Viacon troopers and says that they're going to want to see this. And well, this is where they find the Insecticon hive. And Megatron, once again, is loving this. He's got just about everything he needs. An upgraded army with Insecticons. And he doesn't have to worry about them at all. He feels elated. He feels happy. Megatron now has Tidal Wave, a Predacon, Shockwave back, and now the Insecticons. Everything's looking up Megatron, right? Well, believe it or not, the episode Operation Breakdown still happens the same. Unfortunate. But Starscream does manage to be the one to say Breakdown, and the Monster Bots are absent from this one as they really have no reason to jump in and join Breakdown. The next episode, however, is Metal Attraction, where Optimus, in trying to keep the team together, decides to have him and Grimlock be the ones to go and get it. Now, in this timeline, Breakdown would be the one to go by himself. However, with more Decepticons, this is where he decides that Breakdown could go with Shockwave. Interesting, ain't it? And so, when they meet the Autobots there, and Arachnid is here as well, she tries to find a perfect opportunity to steal the immobilizer for herself. But unfortunately, when she actually sees that the Autobots that arrive have our Optimus and Grimlock, she backs down and tries to creep away quietly. However, little did she know that she was already spotted by Shockwave. And this is where I would have to say everything ultimately does go the same, except it's a bit worse. Grimlock tries to tear apart Shockwave. However, Optimus is the one to restrain him, and ultimately they do get the Polarity Gauntlet. But again, it comes at the cost of Grimlock hating Optimus because he stopped him from getting his vengeance, from getting that kill. And ultimately, this begins the little fractures in their team dynamics because of Optimus's mercy and Grimlock wanting to put down a threat before it could happen. However, before the Decepticons do leave, they manage to capture Arachnid, who was bought before Megatron. And well, he's got plans for Arachnid. The fact that not only was she around, but she tried to steal from him. Steal from his cause. So, he's going to let Arachnid be Shockwave's new experiment for his transmutation device. To which Arachnid, looking in horror, tries to use her connection to the Insecticons to ultimately, well, help her. However, they don't obey her. They see her as weak, not their queen like they originally would. With a subdued and, well, weak Arachnid, and they can also feel her fear, they don't bother helping her as seeing Megatron as a superior leader. And this kind of gives the Insecticons a lot more free will. The episode Rock Bottom does not happen, or at least not like in the original, meaning the Autobots can honestly help themselves to any of the Energon that they ultimately have within the mine. So pretty much the Autobots just get an extra set of Energon for their supplies. The next episode we have is Partners, and believe it or not, this also takes place differently. Starscream has no reason to deceive the Decepticons, and well, takes Skyquake to the actual coordinates. However, with no deception, this also means the Autobots get to the actual coordinates. And I'm going to say, since it's in a remote area, Optimus decides to let Slug, Snarl, and Sludge go with RC, Bumblebee, and Bulkhead, with RC being the one in charge of this mission, with Slug pretty much backing her up, because again, Slug is he's a little bit more reasonable than Grimlock is. And well, this actually means that the Decepticons have no other choice but to leave the Harbinger behind. However, Starscream says he may have an alternative solution. While there isn't, any immobilizer for them to take, meaning the Autobots get a full immobilizer here, this also means that the Decepticons do have their own Decepticon protoforms, and they could use this to their benefit. But the next episode does happen differently. TMI. With the Autobots and the Monsterbots all engaging together, this is where Megatron decides to not only go himself along with Skyquake, but also unveils the Predacon. Luckily for them, they also have their own beast-like flyer, that being Swoop. So we get to essentially see Manda versus Predaking, wind versus fire. And believe it or not, I think this will be a very great clash. However, everything takes a turn for the worse when Tidal Wave is actually able to make his way and turns the tide in the Decepticons' favor. So, the Autobots have to pull a slick maneuver, with Bumblebee doing the same thing he did to the Spark Extractor to, well, the data cylinder, and pretty much grabs it, swoops around Megatron, and ultimately flees right through the portal. And well, yeah. The Autobots get a full formula of synthetic Energon, meaning Ratchet can finally have the whole thing, and they could work on it to become stronger and faster. Oh wait, pun intended, that's the next episode. This episode plays out differently, with the Autobots and Monsterbots honestly being there, and with Swoop being able to cover RC, there is really no need for Ratchet to take the formula, meaning there is more time to use it and more time to perfect it. However, this is where another thing becomes an issue. Who gets to use it? Now, the Monsterbots easily want to use the formula to become stronger and faster at killing machines so that they could decimate any of the Decepticons. But Optimus decides against this and decides that for right now, no one's going to use this formula until it's absolutely needed. To which the Monsterbots simply roll their eyes and simply go on their own way, calling Prime that they seem, obviously feeling robbed of the chance to actually be able to, well, utilize something to make them stronger and to make the war likely go faster. However, it does mean that the Monsterbots are willing to kind of look into Prime's more safety side, even if it just goes against it. But the next part we have is the One Shell Rise, where Optimus does raid the Decepticon ship, just like in the original. And well, this does play out a bit differently, where he sees someone harmed, or he at least hears whimpering. And well, when he opens the doors, he sees Arachnid. And she looks vastly different. Her form changed. And when Optimus simply addresses her, recognizing who it is, she sees that Arachnid has been converted into a monster bot herself. And she hates it. She wants nothing more than vengeance. And Optimus ultimately uses this moment to let her go, actually allowing her to go around and be about. And Arachnid initially could go onto the warship, but understanding that they have a Predacon, she decides to take a easier way out, sneaking out and utilizing her beast form's more spider-like abilities to create a new web parachute and just simply get off the ship. But she does vow to exterminate the Decepticons and the Insecticons when she gets the chance. This would then lead to Optimus versus Megatron. And when Bulkhead and Bumblebee return with the information, the Monster Bots are elated, with even Grimlock and Snarl simply stating that Optimus has finally gotten rid of his soft side and is about to finally kill Megatron. However, that fight goes relatively the same, with one difference though. It's the Monster Bots that come to Optimus's rescue rather than Bulkhead and the Autobots. And well, this means that Megatron gets a very far worse beating than the original. And well, we're going to actually change some next things in the next part. Peace.